Hi, my name is Aaron, and I recently finished the class that you are currently taking. Um, Dr. Gentry was my professor, and I wanted to help him a little bit by doing a peer to peer explanation of the STR, the Science of Teaching Reading state exam, which I did pass first try. It can be done, I do promise. Uh, so let's go over that real quick. Buckle up, you're warned. It's in the slides, so you can't sue me. All right. Um, and I like to make lots of jokes. It's really not that bad, and I'll tell you how to get through it. And how I got through it, how I did, and how my peers that were not able to do it the first time, what they told me they wish they would have done. So maybe you can use this to help you. Okay. So what do you need to know? So first of all, there's 13 competencies, and yeah, I know that's a lot. Each competency has its own criteria, but they all go together. I always say it's like a salad. It's got different ingredients, but you put it all together to make one big thing, and that's what you're going to be tested over. Terminology, aka vocabulary, be familiar with it, know what it means, know how to fix it. Okay, and most importantly, um, think like a teacher. We're teachers now, so think about it that way, where you're going to be asked questions that a teacher should be able to answer. So just make sure you're aware that you're going into it thinking like a teacher, quote unquote. Okay, so where do I find that stuff? Where do I find all this stuff that I'm supposed to know? Um, when I went through the class, Dr. Gentry had the Science of Teaching Reading Canvas community, which is located to the left of the screen. That was my favorite. Everything you need to know, it is in there. I promise. And there's a lot in there. I know, but it's all there. 240 also has the STR available. 240 personally doesn't help me as much as the Canvas community, but that's a personal preference. I'm not saying it's not good. Also, TEA is really nice because it tells you everything you're going to be tested over. So between these three items, the only thing you're not going to know is the exact question they're going to ask, but you're going to know the answer to the questions. So moving on, how do I know what to focus on during my studies? Which is that was my biggest question. How do there's so much 13 competencies? How in the world am I supposed to know what I need to worry about? Best bet, ask your instructors. They teach this for a reason. They're experts in it, obviously. So they're a really good resource. And I talked to Dr. Gentry a lot, saying, "Hey, can you please, kind of tell me what I might need to hone in on and not ignore the rest, but just what's more important than the other information." Look at review guides. There's a ton of them. Everything on that previous page has tons and tons of resource material that you can thumb through and make sure you pay attention to the key points. As I said before, be familiar with the terminology and the remediation strategies is a big part of that. It's great if you know what dyslexia is or dysgraphia, but you also need to know how to fix those problems possibly. Or if you don't know what a morpheme is, first of all, figure that out and figure out what that means. And secondly, if a kid is struggling with morphemic analysis, you got to know how to fix it, and that's on this test. So make sure you not only know what things are, but how do you correct them, or at least where do you start to correct them. My favorite thing I used, I call them commonalities, things that were both in 240 very heavily and in the STR community very heavily. If you keep seeing something over and over and over, it's got to be important, and it it really was for me. So look for those big ticket items that keep popping up. So make sure you know those, and again, make sure you know how to correct them. So what does the test look like? I legally can't show it to you, obviously, but here's a really good breakdown. This is from TEA and Pearson's website, this graph to the right. So it's broken down into 4 domains. Like I said, there's 13 competencies. There's a lot of competencies, but these are broken down further, or I guess broken down together rather, in domains. So there's pedagogy, foundational skills, comprehension, and the written portion of the test. And each part of it is broken down in this pie graph. So you can see like domain 4, domain 3, pretty close. Domain 2, though, huge part of the test. In fact, it's almost half the test. So I'm not saying don't study it all, but you should probably know the big parts of that pie graph before you know the small parts if for your success. know all of it. I'm not saying don't study, but make sure you're paying attention to what the biggest part of it is. Because if you study only domain one, you can be a master at it. That's fine. You're only going to get a 13 on that test, though. So just use your critical thinking skills on that one, and this graph should help you. So, any last minute advice? I don't want to take too much time. Um, and that second line's a joke. I know you're not scared, but I remember being like, oh my goodness, this is a lot for me to take in because I've got all these other state tests going on. I've got 5 classes and I have a kid to take care of. For me personally, it was a lot, right? Use your time wisely when you're preparing for the test and especially during the test. This test is a long time. So you sit down and think you've got all the time in the world, but that's also a written response. So keep that in mind. That takes a while. Stay organized. You've got to stay organized when you are studying for this, but especially when you are doing your written response. That's the most important part. And I'm going to skip the next one. Make an outline for your written response. That's part of staying organized. So uh, you're in class, you'll go over the template that you'll want to use. On Pearson, they give you the template for your written response. And on the test itself, it tells you you got to listen, or not listen, excuse me, you got to pay attention to what they're telling you, but it will tell you exactly what should be in each paragraph and exactly what they're looking for. Okay. Make sure you do it exactly like the template, like a paragraph about this. Don't talk about anything else, just talk about that. That's what I mean by stay organized. Make an outline of your written response. Okay. When you go to your written response, you're going to have, I believe it's 4 different exhibits. While you're listening, watching, reading those exhibits, take notes on the left side of the paper they're going to give you. And then on the right side, after you go through all of them, you should have a bunch of notes on the left. On the right side, I recommend make a big outline and see what paragraph is supposed to include what. Take those notes you just sketch down and start throwing them into your outline. And then before you even start typing, you know exactly what you're going to say in the order you're going to say it, and it's going to be make it 10 times easier when you do your written response. Organization is the key. Um, Another thing I want to say about the written response, and I don't believe it's a breach of issue of confidentiality. When you're typing it, if you type, you're on the third paragraph and you go, oh, you know what? I wanted to put this in paragraph 1, and you go back to try to add it, it will start deleting what is after your little typing bar, right? So if you start in the middle of a sentence and you want to kind of fluff that sentence up, you can't do it because then you start erasing everything after it. So make sure what you type is what you want exactly the way you want it. Now you can backspace, you just can't click up in the previous part of your written response and add to it. You can't do that. It will delete it. Um, and I know the insert key can sometimes fix that. It does not fix it. Okay. Well, it didn't for me anyway. So make sure you have it sketched down exactly the way you want from the beginning, the whole way through. Pretend like you're writing it permanent marker because essentially that's exactly what you're doing. Okay. So going back, relax when you take the test. This is the most important thing. Just relax, breathe, take a walk. And I really mean that after you've gone for a while and you start getting like blurry vision and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're allowed to take restroom breaks. You're allowed to go grab a sip of water. Please use that. You should have enough time. It'll be okay. I'm not saying go, for a hike, but just take like a minute, just 1 or 2 minutes, get up, walk down the hall, take some deep breaths, get you a sip of water, go back, sit down, take another deep breath, and start back in. You'll do 10 times better than if you just try to go through it in one swoop without blinking, basically. Just relax. Um, Also, if you get stuck on a multiple choice question, you can flag it for review and you can come back to it later. And because sometimes we can't think of the answer in the moment, then later it's like, oh, you know what, I do remember that, and then you can go back. That's way better than getting stuck. The last bit right there. Do not trap yourself answering a question. If you are stuck and you just can't figure it out, just flag it for review, skip it, come back to it. You've got a lot to do and you have enough time to do it, but not if you keep getting stuck. Okay. So, and at the very end, if you flagged it for review and you just absolutely don't know, just take your best shot. You're not going to know everything. That's normal. So, but I believe that's all I've got. Best of luck to you. You're going to do great. You have awesome instructors. They're more than happy to help you with all of this stuff. And if anyone has any more questions for me, I'm always available. I'd be happy to help you. So, best of luck out there. And I look forward to hearing about how well you guys did. Thank you.